homie.
Men, women, and children from blocks all around the world. I am my block's strongest man. And tonight I have not one, but two very special guests for you. Two Arnold winners, Camilla Fogagnolo and Carl Sherry. Welcome to both of you.
Hey, thanks for having us on.
How you doing? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. This is a real treat for us. 2 for 1 and 2 champions for one, nonetheless. And so what I like to start with is what I consider probably the most important part of the whole interview. Brag about your accomplishments, whoever would like to go first.
You go.
I might start because if we let Camilla start, I might not get a go. She may have more than me. So won a few shows. So I guess it started out, I was a kid watching it, never thought I'd actually get to play. And then by chance, someone said there's a Strongman comp on, and I kind of just jumped in and had a play. Won a couple of Arnolds here in Australia, a couple of other nationals. What have I done? OSG was third in 2017, went back in 2019 and got second there. And then last year we went to Ohio and managed to win that show there. So finally won a world, which is cool. So that's probably the quick version. So yeah.
Fantastic. You have your eye on OSG for this year?
That's the plan. All things going well. If I'm in good shape and the world lets us play, that's the plan, and hopefully the pattern will continue. So 17 third, 19 second, 21 first is probably a good bring to it, I think. So yeah,
that sounds like a great pattern to me. And Camilla, how about you?
So still a relative newbie to Strongman. Started 3 years ago. First comp was in January of 2018. Yeah, 2018. Before that, I started judo when I was 6 years old. I did field athletics, and my main sport was Olympic weightlifting, which I started at 14 years old and was on and off with that for close to 20 years. I still dabble in that now, which is nice. It's a good crossover sport. But yeah, as far as Strongman goes, I've won some local shows, managed to win the Australian Arnold 2019, and qualified to go to Ohio 2020, won the lightweight for that as well, much as I'm probably an imposter in the lightweight division because I walk around reasonably heavy, which is a fun time. Aside from that, I won Static Monsters, the Worlds that they had on the Gold Coast in 2019. Came third in Australia's Strongest Woman, which is an open weight competition. That was a big achievement. I think I currently hold the under 73, maybe under 82 Atlas Stone world record of 150 kilos over 1.20 meters, and the outright silver dollar deadlift of 365 kilos, no suit.
Wow. That's an incredible weight. I'm trying to do the math in pounds in my head. 365, you said?
Yeah.
That's like 800 pounds. Wow. That's amazing. And the kind of the elephant in the room, I have to ask, you have a very Italian last name. Have you always lived in Australia?
Yeah, I have. Born and raised on a small island of Australia called Tasmania. But yeah, my father was from Milan and my mum from Berlin, Germany. So I'm a bit of an odd mix, and Australian, raised in Australia from Italian-German heritage.
She has German efficiency with Italian flair. So it's quite a compliment.
Fantastic. So you drive a Mercedes during the week, a Ferrari on the weekend? Fantastic. That's great. I was actually reading online a bit about, your transition from Olympic weightlifting into Strongman. Do you want to talk about kind of how that transition happened?
Yeah, sure. So, as I mentioned, did weightlifting for many, many years. I'm a big believer, and I'll say it quite often, that Olympic weightlifting, especially certain movements in it, for example, the power clean, crosses over into other sports incredibly well, but not many sports are particularly productive for the improvement of Olympic weightlifting. So having had that background, I mean, I started because my brother started it to cross-train for his field athletics. He was quite good at discus and hammer throw, so he started doing Olympic lifting to build his explosiveness for that. And my father encouraged me to give it a go as well when I was angsty and young and was like, nah, I'm not going to like it. That sounds like rubbish. But, yeah, actually did really enjoy it. So, and then when I finished my career in December 2017, I was trying to make the Commonwealth Games for the next year, and I missed out on that by a kilo. I had won nationals and I was, very highly ranked in Australia, but, just didn't pull it together. I was fairly broken at the time, and then I was done with sport. Pretty much in my head that was over as far as being a high-level competitor went. I was going to focus on being an adult and life and all that sort of thing. And
I do that. That's so boring.
Yeah, this turned out to be the better path. But, my brother did a bit of strongman locally, and he'd also competed at the Australian Arnold and was talking about how much fun it was and what a nice environment it was to be in. And I know that I was strong, so I just thought I'm just going to dabble so that we can compete together again, because it had been many years since we did competitions together. I thought my first ever strongman competition was the qualifier for the Australian Arnolds. That was, in 2018. I competed at that and I managed to win and qualify and went 2 months later to Melbourne to do the Australian Arnolds, and I think I placed 7th there, which I was naive and really disappointed with that placing. But, that's the lowest I've ever placed in a strongman comp since. So.
Yeah, and so for the folks in the audience who aren't familiar, the Australian Arnold is one of the qualifiers for the main Arnold. So when you were talking about Ohio, that's the main Arnold.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, great story. And then, Carl, do you want to elaborate a bit on your journey into how you found Strongman?
Yeah, so I've been doing it for quite a while, I guess, compared to most. So I think my first show was 2008 or 2009. So I was powerlifting at the time, and a friend of mine, he couldn't powerlift because he had a bunged shoulder, basically, and he sent me a message saying, there's a strongman comp on whatever day, Saturday. So I think I had a couple of days' notice, and I was like, cool. So it went along, had never picked up any of the stuff. Like I said, I watched it as a kid growing up. And when I first moved to Australia, so I'm from the UK originally, my dad would send me videos, so, some people wouldn't remember, but VHS tapes of World's Strongest Man, so that was cool. So that the only way I could get to watch it, and eventually I guess I worked out that you could watch some of them on YouTube retrospectively. Did that, had a wicked time at the comp. There wasn't weight classes, and I think we had under 105s and opens, so that was the case. So I think for the first 2 or 3 years I would just rock up to these comps, would have 1 or 2 every year and just have a play. And went okay, but didn't know how to use really any of the equipment, didn't specialise at all. And then I think I bought a stone and a couple of other bits and pieces. There was a show at the Melbourne Grand Prix. So again, before weight classes were really a thing, this is when it sort of started. There was an under 90 comp, and I used to compete at 74 kilos in powerlifting, so I was a huge human. Went over there, and there was a few guys from the UK there and a couple of Aussies who were very good. And they just smashed me, which was an eye-opener. So I almost wasn't going to do the show because the weights were quite heavy. And then I thought, I'll do it. And then on the day, they made them heavier, which was like, cool, glad I travelled across for this. I guess I was sort of like mid-pack, better of the not very good athletes, and then just absolutely massacred by the others, which was really good because then it was like, wow, that's where the bar is. So then I actually got some equipment and started training specifically to be better at the sport. And then I think it was 2000 and, what was that? Maybe 15. There was a qualifier on interstate, so I went over there, did that, came second, so that was Australia's under 90. And the idea was if we did well, we'd get to go to the Arnold. That was the first year they had the Arnold Australia. Then they decided that we weren't very cool, and they didn't let us play there, and instead they got some girls who didn't qualify to do some fitness show, which was a bit sad. And then again, I started running shows then because I thought it was a lot better. Like most other states had qualifiers and I guess regular shows to get better at the sport. So I decided if I want to be good at the sport and the sport to grow, I needed to run shows. So started running shows, started training seriously, and then won the Arnold the next couple of years. when we were actually allowed to play, and I cut weight for that. So again, it's weight class imposter of sorts. When I'm a bigger human, I have to cut a fair bit to make it down to the Hobbit division in the 80 kilos.
A lot of great stuff to unpack there. So first of all, I mean, for a former powerlifter, I would just like to know, compare and contrast powerlifting to strongman.
Well, I guess in that case, like powerlifting's changed a fair bit. So then I used to compete in the IPF, and there wasn't raw lifting. So you go compete, and you don't have to wear equipped gear, but you still competed against the same people. So that was different. I would sumo deadlift too, so that worked better. So at the time, I think I could pull like the worst. So I think I pulled 260 sumo, and at the time I could pull about 200 conventional. So switching over, like powerlifting is quite boring, and again, powerlifters might get upset, but as a spectacle goes, it's just, I don't know, they pick up a bar, they put it back down, they have 3 lifts. There's not a huge amount to it. Training wise, pretty similar as well. There's 3 lifts. Obviously, we incorporate those into strongman, but strongman's just so much cooler. Like, you watch someone pull a truck or pick up a car or whatever, and just the athleticism involved. Whereas, I mean, you can be a big fat mess and manage to do 3 lifts in powerlifting. Not that all of them are. I've heard a couple aren't, but like strongman just looks wicked, and you have to be able to run. You've got to have some, again, work capacity to be able to work for 60 to 90 seconds and then go and max out in the next event. So I think it's just, it's a strength sport. For me, it's definitely the pinnacle. It's the coolest as a spectacle, and to play because it is varied, and not to, I guess, it's varied enough. It's not like CrossFit and you have to swim, because I would drown and be terrified. But in terms of like lifting stuff and moving with objects and I guess seeing what's possible, I think it's the best.
I would assume living on an island, everybody could swim. I guess not.
Well, I lived in a different one in the UK, and I don't know, can swim a couple of strokes before death, I suppose. But a land mammal for sure. So is it a fair assumption to say you've never considered going back to powerlifting? I sort of did, actually. So leading into, funnily, I was prepping for, what was that? OSG 2019. So I've always coached myself and done self-programming. A couple of times I reached out to get some help when I was looking to go to Worlds, and it didn't work out. And then met Camilla at a show. We were talking, and she was saying she doesn't believe in self-coaching. I was like, well, believe it or not, it happens. So anyway, we had a chat, and then I let her do my programming for OSG 2019. But I also wanted to qualify for a powerlifting show, and I hadn't done it in ages. So we were doing both. And then I think, I tweaked a pec and a hamstring in the same week, I reckon, about midway through the prep. And I thought, it's not worth I needed to be ready for OSG, and having these stupid niggles from attempting to try and win 2 shows, or at least place in 2 shows on one weekend in the future seemed a bit dumb. So I canned that idea. So I don't know really. At the moment, I'm not too bothered about it. I guess it would be cool maybe one day if I aligned the stars with the moon and may have a sort of return, but I don't know. I think the idea is cooler than the reality. Again, it's a bit boring to train, and it's not the coolest to compete. So I will probably stick to being a one-trick pony, I think.
Strongman is cool for sure. So the next question I had, Camilla, for you, when you first started Strongman, what was the event that got your attention the most, that you really said, that's the one I want to do?
Probably, I was honestly so ignorant and naive to the whole sport of strongman. So probably it would be stones, just because I had seen them and I thought that they looked interesting. However, I played around with a few that my brother had at his house. I think it was like the week before the competition, and they didn't feel like the best time I'd ever had. So, but probably, as far as the spectacle goes, and also as someone looking in from the outside and being reasonably ignorant, the element of danger that you see when people are lifting stones is quite fascinating, intriguing and terrifying.
Atlas stones in particular, or natural stones?
Atlas stones, definitely. I never touched a natural stone until I went to Australian Nationals here in 2019. Even up to the day of the competition, I'd never touched a natural stone there either. I mean, aside from growing up on a farm, obviously, and hoisting lots of wooden stones and stuff, but yeah, no, I hadn't touched one until I did the comp run, and yeah, that was quite cool because I think I set a national record on that on the day as well. So
that's amazing. Yeah. Yeah, I have the opposite situation. So I've never touched an Atlas stone. I've only touched natural stones because that's all that's in my backyard.
Yeah, nice. They're interesting because they're problem solving.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, it was just that, problem solving. I needed to build a retaining wall, and I had a bunch of stones over there that needed to get over there, and it just made a fun workout out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's train and build stuff at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. Carl, how about you? What's your favorite event? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And you've got to move it back. Well, at least you've got an end product. Yeah. You're like, check out my wall, it's awesome. We just got to move the piece of rock and then move it back and then pack it away when you're tired. So yeah, yours sounds like a much better idea. Honestly.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, have you ever come across any of those medleys where you have farmers and sandbag, and then some of them they end with you have to go retrieve the farmers and bring them back to the starting position?
No,
I don't reckon I have.
No.
Yeah, so I was doing color commentary recently for Central Georgia's Strongest Man, and that was the original plan, and then they changed it at the last second. But originally it was 50 feet with farmers, 50 feet back with a sandbag, then go retrieve the farmers and bring them back to the starting position. And then a couple days before, they nixed that last part.
Yeah, sounds like a good choice.
Yeah, so no end product, I guess.
No.
Yeah. So let's kind of rewind back to childhood. So Camilla, how about you? What is something interesting about your background, your roots, that maybe people wouldn't realize?
Yeah, I've got lots. I've got lots of stuff. Yeah, we don't have enough time for all of it. Let's go with a real simple one. I was home educated, so that made life interesting, I guess. I mean, I can't really compare because I didn't go to school, but me and my two older brothers, yeah, we were home educated until matriculation age, so grade 11, year 11 for us. Usually kids go to that year when they're about 15, 16, 17 years old, depending on when they start their schooling education. I did that when I was 13. I started college, so that was, yeah, ridiculously young. Wow. Not because I was stupid smart. I just didn't like being at home, so I wanted to be out, and Dad wouldn't let me go to high school, so college was the happy medium. But, yeah, I really enjoyed it, fitted in well. That was all fun. I was a pretty shocking kid. Like, yeah, would have been a nightmare for my parents. But, yeah, that was it made life interesting growing up in that our socialisation was through sport, so judo or athletics or weightlifting in the future, and that's why I think, because I disliked being at home, I think that's why I was so committed to the whole process of training, because it gave me an outlet, it gave me a reason to not be there, it gave me, just an out. I got to travel, I got to, be something else.
That's very interesting. Good answer. How about you, Carl?
That's going to be quite dull in comparison, I reckon.
Me too.
Played a mixture of sports, I guess. As a kid, my dad used to train, and he was always quite big and strong. So I guess, I don't know, as a kid, you grow up watching like He-Man and Thundercats and the A-Team, and like, I don't know, been strong as like a given. If you're not a big hulking man, you're not really a man, I guess. So, which is good. So yeah, I guess it's kind of funny. You hear the world talk about stereotypes for women and how they have to fit this thing, and it's not often mentioned that I guess guys also have these, whether it's Action Man or something. They're all pretty hardcore. And
G.I. Joe.
Yeah, which I haven't actually managed to get that, but I guess not like a pencil either. So I guess that was like the imagery in the head. Played a mixture of sports, did quite well. So athletics and rugby and football and stuff.
Martial arts career.
Yeah, long martial arts career, did medal like a boss, it's true. And then, she's been for 6 years. I started karate when I was like 4, I think, which was earlier than you meant to. The sensei I had was really cool, let me start early. I was, meant to be quite good. Won a medal at a local show, but I finished when I was still a kid. So she just gives me grief because I finished when I was a kid and I wasn't like a grown-up martial arts. She's just being a turd. And then, played through high school. Again, was quite good at sports. Would go to like the, I guess, state shows and stuff. And then I guess I had a knee issue, like osgood schlatters growing, so I couldn't play as much sport, and the advice was rubbish by most of the professionals. Ended up, I guess, being a bit more of a waster, like doing, I guess, more drugs and drinking, and that kind of carried on. Played sport for a while doing both, but that was a bit too hard. And then, yeah, really just sort of lost my way for a while. And then probably when I was about, I don't know, maybe 18, a friend of mine and started training at the gym, so I started training with him and then stopped, I guess, being such a mess. Well, at least stopped smoking and stuff. Started training, and then I got more into that. And then I started training with my dad, which was funny because he used to train and then got sort of overweight and things, and then got back into the gym because I was training, which was cool. So I did that for a little while, and that was just in like a little golf club. But that training sort of went from initially like squatting and deadlifting to like benching 3 days a week. And then I moved to Australia. There wasn't really a gym because I was in a little town, so I didn't train for a couple of years, bought a gym, started training. And then eventually worked in a gym, so I was PTing. Was a bit bored with training, to be honest. Still bench far too often and probably didn't squat and deadlift nearly enough. Found out about powerlifting show and thought, there'll be something to train towards. Imagined it would be this massive thing with loads and loads of people competing. And they were really welcoming, and I was like, oh, wow. But there was again, I don't know, there might have been about 15 lifters on the day. It was very quiet. And I was going to bench only. And then I think I tweaked something in my shoulder leading in, so that bugger it, I'll try squat and deadlift too. And then ended up winning the show overall on the 3 lifts, but was not I don't know, I shouldn't have really, to be honest. And then, did that for a few years. And like I said, that led into Strongman. So, that's from little me to slightly bigger me as an adult, I guess.
Yeah, really. I mean, the most interesting thing you said there to me was rugby. So I played a little bit of intramural rugby in high school. And for people who have never done it, talk about how brutal rugby can be.
I guess to Americans it's probably brutal because you get to wear pads and you get to sit down for half the game if you play gridiron. So to me, that's mental. So you can just go all out and then, you're done offense, go sit down. Whereas, rugby, I guess you've got to go back and forth. So I guess initially it used to be there's union and league. And union, it was often just like fatties and they wouldn't move around in the scrum. But then the game sort of evolved, so everybody had to move around a lot more and be a lot faster. So, tackling, it is, I guess it's sort of savage, but it's not. So at least generally you're in a line, you're going to get either hit head on or you can be taken from behind. But that's about it. So it is sort of brutal, but I don't know. I guess the object's not to get hit that often. So if you're quick, which I, again, was pretty speedy, it was pretty rare to get tackled. I actually remember one game I never had a big tackle and got rattled, and you'd hear stories of it, and I would always intend to, I guess, crunch other people. And again, I wasn't a big human at all, but I guess I was, I don't know, enthusiastic, I guess. And some dude just crunched me. The game kicked off. I caught the ball on the start, and it was the first time I'd ever got buried in the ground and was like, oh, wow, getting up wasn't the greatest or the most, thrilling idea. It was, actually that rocked my socks a little bit. But it's good. I don't know. Fun, I guess. But I think like most things, if you play any sport at a reasonable level and you're competitive, I think that's what transfers more so than the brutality of the sport. I imagine the real life grown-up martial arts is more brutal than, prancing around on the rugby pitch.
Depends on the martial art.
That's true.
Yeah, so another thing I was wondering, just, going kind of back in time again, Camilla, did you have a hero growing up, and has that changed today?
Ooh.
Ooh.
Ooh. That's a hard question. Definitely not a sporting hero. It's an interesting concept to me in that I guess I mentioned it recently to someone else, but I don't look at high level in my. Let's go weightlifting. Let's stay with weightlifting for now because that was the longest time I was in a sport. Looking at the highest thing I achieved, I went to Worlds in Houston in 2015 and I was in a B division. So watching women, let's say 20 kilos lighter than me, easily snatching what I can clean and jerk, I think it's phenomenal. I think it's incredible. I think I can appreciate the work that goes into it, but I don't find it motivational and I don't find it inspirational because it's so separate. It's so far from what I could ever achieve with what I'm willing to do that it's just not relatable to me. So again, I appreciate it, but I'm not motivated by it. I think what motivates me is is around my own level. So when you think that you're fairly good at something, and this worked for me in Strongman at a certain competition, I thought that I was a shoo-in for an event because I'm particularly good at it. It was axle clean and jerk, and I've got a bizarre way of cleaning the axle like a normal weightlifting bar and jerk it with a split jerk. So I was like, oh, there can't be too many females. If I was good at weightlifting, then there can't be too many females in Strongman who outlift me at this lift. So I was plodding along with my training and pretty happy with picking up reasonably average weights for me. But then I was fortunate enough to see someone else who was doing more than me. She was heavier, but again, she was much better than I expected other people to be. And seeing that opened up the doors in my brain to go, okay, I'm not that good. I can do better. Like, I know that I'm strong enough. I know that I'm technical enough. That's where I need to be. So that was an interesting moment for me. There have been lots of those moments for me in Strongman where I think I'm pretty good and then I'm not. So, and I don't, I don't generally think I'm very good at anything. I don't have the greatest self-image or anything like that. But yeah, I definitely have the ability to look at my own abilities and other people's and where I should be on the spectrum of.
You are on the spectrum.
It's true. It's probably.
See, the trick to that is to narrow the volume of the competition. That's why I am my block's strongest man.
Yeah, that's right. Make it a small little niche, and
there's only 5 other guys on the block, and I know I'm stronger than all of them. So
yeah, exactly. Make yourself your own niche.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's an interesting story. How about you, Carl? Did you have any heroes growing up, and has that changed today?
I'd probably mention half of them. They were cartoon characters and the like. Yeah, sort of. I guess there's like the classic, like Arnold was always a classic. I guess you grew up in that era, like I guess the golden era of bodybuilding. Like I said, my old man trained. I used to watch WWF at the time, and like the Ultimate Warrior would come in, tassels and face paint, and massively jacked and crazy. So that was cool. And then I guess in the sport, yeah, like I said, I watched it as a kid. So being like born in England, we would watch like see Jeff Capes I knew of, and he won, but he wasn't like an idol. And I guess I don't know, it sounds harsh, but he's not that appealing as the way he looks. Gary Taylor though, he was Welsh and he won it, and he was like a former bodybuilder and weightlifter, and he was jacked and he won it. So I remember watching that as it happened. Well, it didn't. It was about probably 6 months later, like it always is on TV. But to me, it was as it happened. I didn't realise this, and I was like, "Wow, that was cool." Not an idol though. But then, say when Marius came on the scene, I was a bit older, and it was like, "Wow, he just looked incredible, moved really fast, and was just relentless. Like just his competitive nature was second to none." And I think that's probably the biggest part. Again, I'm not a very big human. He is in comparison to some of the massive dudes, and to see him sort of tear it up was like, "Cool, I want to." Yeah, be like that. So, yeah, probably him, really. And even though loads of people bang on about Zee being the greatest and stuff, which is, yeah, again, phenomenal athlete, has all the records and stuff, I think the mould of, like, Marius and just being savage is cool. So, yeah, I would say in this sport, he would be the pinnacle and the one I'd aspire to be a bit more like, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, this is I'm going to sound like an idiot here, but I'm just shocked that you grew up watching all the same stuff I grew up watching in the U.S.
Oh, it's cool. I think. Well, the thing is too, it's like culturally, it's a massive thing, at least in the UK, because it comes on at Christmas. So everybody's off, well, school, work. So it's on in the lead up, and then New Year's Day. So normally it would be New Year's Day. You watch the final. So you've had all the heats and things, which that part's great. I just think in the world now that it happens at a completely different time, it would be nice if we could watch it soon. Now we don't even get it over here, so you have to hope someone uploads it to YouTube so you can actually watch it, which is a bit shit, really. But yeah, that's as a spectacle, like I said, it's the coolest. I think it's just even people who don't compete, have no bearing or grasp on lifting at all. They just watch that and they're in awe because it's tangible things like fuck, a bus is heavy. So yeah, it is. You watch them pulling it, and it's like, oh wow! So it just makes it seem like larger than life, which I think is the cooler part. The
yeah, I mean, speaking of the heats, that can be a controversial topic. I know Big Loz has talked about this a little bit. What are your thoughts on heats in World? Should they just have more events? Loz talks about he would like 8 events or whatnot, and you just do those 8, no heats. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's the better way to go. I think if you want it to be global. Oh, hang on, do you want to go?
No.
Let me flap my gums some more.
No.
So I think if you want it to be global, which it should be if it's a world, because like, let's say it's the World Cup, every country's allowed to have a go, and they'll generally break it up into regions. So I think they could do that for qualifiers, and maybe there's a certain amount of spots allocated per country. So say the more dominant countries in recent history, so like say that's the UK and the US, and they get a lot of athletes in there, they'll have a cap on how many they can have, and then the athletes would have to do battle and get those spots. And then the same as you would have regions, so let's say it's Australia and New Zealand, and they would have theirs. So that way every place in the planet has an option to get someone to Worlds. I think that would be much better. And then have it over, whether it's 6, 8, 10 events, cover all of the aspects of strongman. Because if you watched it in basically forever in World's Strongest Man, they don't really go like head to head over all of the things. So in a heat, someone might get dumbbells, someone else gets log and axle. So you don't necessarily get the best athlete. It can really come down to what events came up on the day. Say on the finals, if there isn't, say, a moving event, and there's a lot more static stuff, it will suit certain lifters. If there's multiple moving events, so I think if they had all of the bases covered, multiple static lifts, multiple mobile events, and some of the ones we actually have to use your brain, which no way, not in strongman, it'll be much better. And that way you can't afford to have a weakness. So, which I think is the ultimate, being a really well-rounded athlete rather than being good at one or two things. So yeah, I think that's a much better way to go.
You're relying on the luck of the draw in the heats.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that would solidify being the best. Whereas often, it's almost like who's fortunate to get certain events in, and certain athletes are missing out. Like you go back, like Novikov missed out on the final year before last because he lost on a stone off, which is ridiculous. And I think double points for any event is ridiculous. Whereas I think, people talk about trying to make the emphasis on stones better. We were talking about it the other day. There was another podcast on, and they were talking about trying to make it more of a spectacle than stones. Like, don't have stones last. If you want people to put in and do their best on stones, make it the first event, second event, third event, while the points are important. That would immediately change the impetus on the event. So I think he's on the money there, and like he's obviously competed in the same way as obviously we compete. I think it's a much better way to go if you're against everybody in all the events, because if someone drops the ball in one event, it's going to hurt them, and that's the way it should be. Really, you shouldn't be terrible at something. I think it's unprofessional.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the very least, the Heat should have all the same events. Like you said, some doing circus and some doing log is just not. You may give more fortune to one than another. I mean, let's be honest. Brian Shaw's good at everything, but he's especially good at circus dumbbell. Novikov is especially good at circus dumbbell. You give them circus, they're going to do well, and it's just can be unfair to some of the others.
Well, Brian's not that good at moving quickly with light objects. I guess we were watching actually Born Strong yesterday. And if you make it obscenely heavy, Brian Shaw is phenomenal. And just watching him pick up the 700-kilo yoke and move, and he could lift more, and he doesn't put it down. So when it's absolutely mind-blowingly heavy, phenomenal. I think he's struggling now that the game has changed again, and you have to be a lot faster. And he's just struggling, I guess, like he's in the twilight of his career. And then you've got these ridiculously fast, explosive, powerful, and lighter guys doing crazy stuff. So,
but what the same as like if you come across Tom Stoltman on a stone off, or if it's a speed ladder or something like that, like there's no way you're going to make the finals. And again, that comes down to luck of the draw in the heats. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think, to be fair, nobody likes stone offs. Yeah, I mean, from what I've heard anyway, nobody. It's extra work on top of the unfairness. It's extra work for some competitors, and it's just not. That's not fair. So I mean, another thing I was just wondering, kind of stepping away from the competition type questions, in terms of Australia, for someone who's never been there, and I know it's a huge country, but your respective areas of Australia, what are the best parts of Australian culture?
Oh, best parts of it. Servo pie. Well, yeah, I guess it's an easy country. I mean, I've never lived anywhere else, so I can't really comment. I've travelled only for sport. I don't understand. This is going to sound really weird. I don't understand the concept of hobbies, and I've had various debates with people about that. So I don't. For me personally, I get why other people do them, like do stuff to have fun, but I've never done anything for the sake of fun. I know, it really does sound wonderful, doesn't it? But I don't like all of the sports that I've done. I do them, and I try to be good at them. I travel for sport, for competitions. When I'm away at competitions, I see the airport, the hotel venue, the training venue, and the competition venue. And even if there are opportunities to go sightseeing, generally I won't take them because I am there for a purpose. And until I'm done, then, and because I've always been in a reasonably, well, in weightlifting, a heavier weight category, so I'm on last, I just won't do anything until I've competed, and then it's time to go home. So, but as far as our culture goes, it's an easygoing country. Aside from Tasmania, where I live, it's generally sunny and warm. Tasmania is known for being quite cold, and depending on the year, sometimes we do get a summer and it's nice when we do. But Carl's probably better to answer that question.
Yeah, and I guess the easy part, a stunning place, Australia, and I guess you've got such, it just differs so much, I guess, from state to state. Because it is so big, you can have all of the, food. You can basically have all the fruits and foods grown here because there is such diversity in climate. And then the scenery is spectacular, again, surrounded by ocean, so you have amazing coastal regions as well. And just opportunities far different. So, again, growing up in England, I don't know, it's just harder, I guess, and I guess a bit more, I don't know what it is now, like, say, 70 million people in this tiny little space. And it's just grey and grim and cold and miserable most of the time. Did go back there a few years ago. It was actually amazing. There was a summer, and it actually went for the summer instead of a week. So that actually was cooler, and people were a lot happier, maybe because the sun was out. Whereas, yeah, I think people are just generally a bit more optimistic and upbeat over here, I think. So, yeah, it's just an amazing place. So I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. And again, I've travelled a bit, again, for either development, holidays, and competing. And there's some nice places to visit, but I think it's always good coming home. I know the water tastes better, the food tastes better, and it just tends to be, just a good place to be.
Food. Mm.
Interesting. So, Camilla, you were mentioning about, kind of not doing things for hobbies, but doing things for a goal, in other words. And I'm just interested to know, when you compete mindset-wise, do you compete against the competition or against your previous best self?
The nature of the sports that I've done, so I've never played a team sport either, not competitively. I think I had to when I was at university as part of our classes. So, yeah, I've only ever competed in individual sports.
Chess club's team sport.
Chess. What I want to do every competition is do better than I've done in training, and that doesn't always happen, but that's what I want. If I can hit every event and hit a personal best, whether it's reps or time or 1 rep max or whatever, it doesn't matter, that is a good day for me. I can't influence what other people do aside from little
people.
Yeah, aside from going full ninja on their back.
Tanya Harding.
Yeah. Can't change what they can do. I can only do what I can do. But that is, again, a double-edged sword for me. So every event that I approach, I give everything I can to, and that's regardless. So, again, in weightlifting it was different because you had 3 attempts of each lift and you just have to, that's what you do. In Strongman, because of the points, it can be the case where you're already in the lead by a significant margin and you don't even need to do an event to win or to place or whatever. In that situation, I understand rationally why people would do what they have to do to win and then conserve themselves for the rest of the day. But for me personally, I just couldn't. I couldn't do that. I've done, in my head, the training sessions that I do leading up to competition are infinitely harder than the competition day itself. So why wouldn't I have spent weeks and weeks training for something, months? Why wouldn't I see where I'm at? Why wouldn't I test myself to see if I can do more or do better? And if I'm gassed by the next event, well, that's on me for not preparing to do more for the entire day. An example of this was it was Nationals in 2019. There was a car deadlift event.
Oh, good, I was about to say that.
I was in the lead.
You needed 1 rep on the cutout?
I needed 1 rep to win the event. Yep, that's correct.
I'd already gone ahead, so I had to do mine, and I think I had to go before the other guy, and I'm a bit lazy, I guess. So I think I did like 18 reps, which isn't lazy, but I took a little couple of like momentary rests because I get tired is when I'm doing the things. And I think another guy managed to get 19, which is annoying. So I came second, and then this one, who I actually didn't know that well at the time, came over and then was like, I'm going to beat you. And it's like, you only need to do 1 rep. And then she didn't rest because she's not lazy like me, but she also got 18 reps. So she didn't beat me, so she wasted 17 reps to draw, which is a bit sad. But that's her mentality. She's a nutter. So, yeah, does like to go all out. But I think it's a good mentality.
Well, it is what it is. Again, I can only do what I can do. And, yeah, hopefully on the day that's enough.
On this day it wasn't.
Needed 1 more.
Yeah, car deadlift actually reminds me of a competition I saw here in the U.S. recently that I was kind of, a part of helping promote. And I'm thinking of a question for you. Do you ever go to competitions where weights are misloaded and they're heavier than you expect? And how do you work through such a thing?
Yeah.
No, you've done more comps, you go. I'll think.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes they are, but I don't normally mind, to be honest, because generally, and I sound like a massive wanker, more so probably than usual, but I normally train heavier than the comp. So, like a lot of people, it depends on where you are and your strength level, I guess. Whereas a lot of people will work on doing things at a lower percentage and then hope that on the day they're fresh and the stars align. Whereas, I don't know, I don't work like that, I guess. So I like to go heavier than the comp in training and then do sort of speed work or whatever with comp weights. So I guess I'm efficient with them and they don't feel so bad. Obviously there'll be an exception if there was an event that's more than I'm capable of doing, but usually in our division, they're not that heavy. It's more about, being fast, I suppose. Well, again, I sound like a twat, but they don't seem that heavy. And then even when it's like we had a pretty heavy deadlift ladder in OSG, and again, that was quite heavy for me. It wasn't for some of the guys by the looks of it. But I pulled that again in training. I guess I like to, again, go heavier, and then it should be easier on the day. It wasn't easier on the day at all. It was horrible. I think someone turned the gravity up, but I managed to do it and not die. It's close. But yeah, misloads, they happen. But again, like, if it happens, then as long as everybody else does the same stuff, I don't mind. And generally, again, I'm a bit lazy. I'd rather it be a bit heavier and not have to do as many reps or not have to go as far. So, yeah, not a huge deal as long as everybody gets the same misload. I actually hate it when it's a low misload. So we had the Arnolds. I jumped up to the 90 division, and it was meant to be 120 kilo farmers for 60 meters, which is quite a long way, which was good. And again, I could do that in training, so I was quite happy, ready to go. And on the day, they shortened the course, which was shit, but they also misloaded it, so it was only like 110. So loads of people finished, which annoyed me. Like I think I came second, and it was down to speed. But again, I was annoyed because I know I can do the work, and I don't. So yeah, misload it heavier. I'm okay with it. Don't make it lighter. It's annoying. That's probably my weird perspective.
Yeah, it's interesting talking about how different athletes peak differently and kind of training heavier than comp weights, because you hear different approaches from different athletes. Like Terry Hollins, for example, was prepping for Worlds last year, and someone asked him, like, how close are you to, is that comp weight? And his response was, why would I ever do that in training? So it's interesting, like, how some athletes just won't touch that and feel more comfortable that way, while some are the opposite.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to two, like, I guess, your capacity or what level it is of your work. Whereas, I mean, if I was just training and there wasn't a comp, I'd probably be doing some of those weights. So it depends also how your body is. Like at the moment, the wheels are barely on the bus, so I wouldn't be going that heavy. It's more about fixing the things and still keeping skills. But if you're in good nick, I don't know. What we were watching yesterday, it was like, it would be interesting to know, like, the strongest guys, if they ever just want to drop the hammer to know what they can do, because otherwise you could die never really knowing what you're capable of. Whereas I tend to not do like all out in shows necessarily. Like if I win the event, I might do one more rep to show that I can, but I wouldn't do 5 more even if I could, because I tend to conserve energy. Or again, because I'm older and compete for a while, I'd be worried that something would break and I wouldn't finish the show. So yeah, I don't know. I think no wrong way to do it. And I think this is the beauty of the sport. There's so many different ways to train. Everybody does it differently, and it's a case of knowing, I guess, what you're capable of versus what's optimal, I suppose.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I like. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just wondering if Camilla had a misload.
No, I haven't. I was only thinking about, and again, not to sound like a wanker, but especially on a local level, my strength is my strength. So the heavier it is, the better it is for me. There are 2 exceptions to that rule in Strongman for me. My kryptonite. My least favourite events are Monster Dumbbell and Log. Monster Dumbbell because I do hate it. It just doesn't happen for me. It makes me feel like my shoulder's going to fall out, and Log makes the whole right side of my body go paralysed, basically, which is a good time. Yeah, it's really fun. So it's up to after a certain weight, so I can do light stuff, but when the compression on the clean hits my right clavicle, I think there must be some sort of nerve compression going on, and my right leg will start shaking uncontrollably. My arm, I'll watch it literally shake on the log. I can't see out of my right eye, and I can't hear, like I just get ringing. It's like, not that I would know, but if I'd ever chucked a whitey, that would be similar to what it would be like.
Oh, that's crazy. Wow.
Generally, I find that the weights are, and again, not putting down anyone or any of the promoters or weight selectors or anything, but for me personally, the weights are too light, and it becomes not about who can finish, but who can do it quicker or who can make less mistakes. Who has a smoother run on the day, and whether that's down to preparation. Yeah, that's a big one too. One that I have a massive issue with is like starting gates or human error on timing, and that sort of thing.
Basically, I think that like in sports everywhere, and I'm sure it's the same in America, little athletic clubs have timing gates. And they're not very expensive, and we can easily borrow them, and yet no show does it. World's Strongest Man, reliant on a hand device. If you're doing anything that's a sprint, farmers, yoke, any moving event, how cheap is it to have starting gates? And then you know exactly who wins and the time, and it's accurate. Whereas we were at shows, and these are high-level shows, and it's not a criticism to the show because it's a turd of a job, and it's not to the person on the timing thing, because human reactions aren't that great generally, even when you train them, and they're not that consistent. So we both had the incidences where our place was different to where it was, and it wasn't until like a video shows that we beat the other person because the times were different. And if you've got lanes and lanes of people reliant on a timing error, either the weights need to be so heavy that you're not going to get a timing issue, which they weren't on some of them. I'm not going to complain about some of the weights because they were quite heavy. Or just have timing gates, and like you wouldn't even have to buy them. They're not that expensive. So I think all these big organizations, it blows my tiny little brain that they haven't done it yet. Like it's crazy. So hopefully one of them watches this and goes, not a bad idea there, Carl, and we're like, cool.
Even borrow. Beg, borrow, steal, like it does.
Don't steal them. That is not okay. The poor kids won't be able to do their athletics. It'll be terrible.
I don't know if you've ever seen, there's a bodybuilder, Greg Doucette, who's very popular on YouTube, and he always says, "Don't break the law. I don't want you to break the law."
No, that would sweet it.
And I'm not that strong. I was just trying to deflect attention so the law doesn't come in and get me as well.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't even realize that it was all done by hand. I mean, it's you're talking about the stuff they use for track and field, right?
Yeah, just timing gates. Yeah, not expensive, and very simple to use. And then you don't even need as many helpers. And most shows have problems getting enough people to help spot and load and things. Let's say you have 8 lanes, which most people don't. But let's say it's even 4 lanes. These can run up to, I don't know what the limit is, but let's say it's 8 because I know they do that in athletics. You only need one person to do that. One does the start. That's it. And then the gates do the rest of the work, and you can analyze it and go, cool, you know who's where. So you've got 7 other bodies could be doing other jobs, loading, moving things back. It would make the event run a lot better. I just can't fathom why it's not done.
Yeah, me neither. Well, I'll be the first. Good idea, Carl.
They just need to start doing it, and it's all good. I'm sure someone else has probably thought about it, but hopefully they implement it. That'll be cool.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, the reason why I brought up missed loads in the first place is that, as I said, there was a contest here in the U.S. recently in January where, first of all, it was on a dirt floor. So it was like sort of an equestrian arena. And so the real interesting thing was by the end of the day, the deadlift had become a 2-inch deficit deadlift because of the dirt pits. And then there were, missed loads on top of that. But, to give them credit, the staff was handling a major competition, Masters Nationals, and Highland Games on the same floor at the same time. So it was a lot going on. Things like that happened. But guys like Travis Ortmeyer ended up with an inadvertent PR because, it was a deadlift medley. So a traditional 9-inch deadlift, then an 18-inch deadlift, then a car deadlift. And so they were told, for the pros, they were told the deadlift was 800 pounds for the 9-inch. And so he went and grabbed it, and he tells a story afterward, that's the heaviest 800 pounds I ever picked up. It turned out to be 879, so it turned out to be a PR for him.
That's a big, big difference.
Yeah.
I see, I've had more of those in my own training, which are good. So I like a missed load when you don't know and you think it is. So I've had it where I've set it up before, but I didn't budge, and then I've got all pissed off with myself for not moving it, and then going, I obviously can do this because this weight. Then smashed it, hit all the reps, then realised I'm a spaz and can't count, and then, PB'd and hit wicked numbers. And the same when you've got an implement and you don't know how heavy it is, and you think it's a certain weight, so then you load it up to what you perceive to be a certain weight, and then you weigh and it's actually 5 kilos heavier. I love those because they're great, but it's not so good again when it's the other way. So that's a pretty major mess up at a big show. That's a lot of weight.
Yeah, Bobby Thompson talked about it afterward, and he was saying, so I started counting the plates, and
it wouldn't faze him so much. He's a crazy deadlifter.
He's I don't know if you saw him at WUS recently. He is really showing himself to be an incredible deadlifter.
He's ridiculous. Well, even so, I guess the amateur at the Arnold, he was a massive puller, and then we were over there, and he made his pro debut at the Arnold while we were there as well.
Okay.
Yeah, he's just a monster, absolute monster.
Yeah.
And same thing long at the moment, so he'll break that the US record shortly when he gets the opportunity. Yeah, he's crazy strong.
Oh, in the log?
Mm.
Yeah, that's coming up at Clash on the Coast in May. Yeah, next month. Yeah, that'll be interesting. That's going to be a great show for the ladies as well because Jessica Fithin and Sam Bellevue are going for the circus, so I want to see that record broken. That's going to be really interesting. Yeah,
it'll definitely. I'm certain it will go. What is it currently? I think it's 79 kilos, which again, I don't know.
It's 180 pounds. Yeah, so I think Donna Moore co-holds it with, I forgot who, because I interviewed Donna as well, and she brought it up. But she co-owns it, and Jessica and Sam are going for 185 pounds.
Yeah.
The crazy on and off elbow problems. So she's going for it on her off hand.
Yeah, I've read about that. Yeah.
I saw Sam punch out 77 kilos. I think I posted that today, actually. So and that was quite easy, to be honest. So I'm pretty confident she'll smash it. It's cool too because she's little, really. It's like I don't know, she will middleweight, maybe Sam. She's not very big.
I think so. Yeah, it's supposed to be a free live stream, so it's going to be great to watch.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So speaking of other athletes, for both of you, who's your favorite athlete that you've competed with, and why?
Got my arm here.
Present company excluded. Who else?
I don't really have one. I don't think. Yeah, I don't. I've got to be Longwood and stuff, and they're very good athletes, but no, not really. No, not really. No.
And how about you, Camilla? Anybody who you hear, she'll be there, that'll be cool.
Lots of them. The community, especially at the higher level, locally, not so much, but on the national level, there's so many lovely people, and I really do genuinely look forward to catching up with them socially and competing with them. And I find the concept of someone who can really push me, I love it. And so I do try to search for events where people who I know can do more than me or as much as me are going to be there. That makes me quite motivated. But there are lots of wonderful personalities. But I guess I'm just definitely the whole process. Current company excluded, you just can't, because the whole process of going through weight cuts, training, programming, competing, even in multi-day events and that sort of thing. Like, I had no idea about any of this, and to experience that on my own and then experience it literally alongside someone going through exactly the same thing it's a completely new and different world for me. And it's been eye-opening and quite wonderful. And sharing the victories, like, winning is amazing and it's a wonderful feeling and everybody loves it, but to share that exact thing with someone else and someone who you care about and love it's next level. That really does take every sort of event to the next level.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a special bond that a lot of people don't have, so that's wonderful.
Some people want to, I guess, like say the Arnold, and I think people in America don't realise how lucky they have it often because they don't have to travel. So we both had to cut quite a lot of weight for the Ohio show. So we're water loading, and what was it like? I think a 12-litre day was our last day on the plane. So you've got to travel, and then you've got to deal with time zones, and not everybody on, like, some airplanes are wicked. So I've done quite a few of these traveling and cutting, and they're not a good time, and you need to wheel all the time, so it's not the greatest for anyone who's close to you. Whereas at least we get it because we're both doing the same thing. And you can have hostesses and hosts, or what a steward, or I don't know, whatever they're called, who are really good and helpful and want you to help you. And then we had some on the flight who didn't want to help at all. They were anti-helpful, to be polite. And being like miserly with the water. Like, we're like, we need 10 litres. If everyone on the plane wants 10 litres, it's like, no one else on the plane is going to want to drink fucking 10 litres of water. There's no joy to be had at all. And then luckily a couple of them were actually quite good. What are you doing? Oh, we're off to a world championship. Oh, that's great. So they would give us water and then threatening to drink like toilet water or whatever to get the water. So that wasn't the easiest. So that's just getting you water. So you haven't started cutting weight. And then you get into Ohio was bitterly cold because it's winter. Then we couldn't get into the hotel room initially because we were waiting for other people. So that was a bit of a turd. And then we went shopping for food and all the shops were shut. And then and then the competition was meant to close because of like the Rona. So then we thought, we travelled all this way, done all your water loading, starting to dry out, and you're hungry. And they're going to can the show, and then is the show going to be on? Is it not? And then you've got all this food around.
The entire bakery section
to eat all the food. And then the next day we're like in Walmart, and this one's stripped down to her undies, and we're checking out scales to see which one's seem the most exact. And then we've got about, I think, $300 or $400 worth of food in the shop because we've got all these things we've not tried before, and we're starving, loaded up. That's the fun parts, and then like drying out, and that's not as fun, and the cramps and making weight and then waiting for it. But again, the cool way is so much cooler. So anyone who's ever done a weight cut, not a great time, especially a bigger one, but so much cooler knowing that someone else is also dying next to you on one instance. But if anything goes wrong, you're also frail and weak, and it's really not the best to get onto the show.
No, that's not. I really struggle. Like, I don't know if I'm overly dramatic, but when I'm down to the bottom end of my weight cut, like, I'm useless at life. I lose my voice, and I can't blink properly. I can't talk properly because my mouth is dry, and I'm just slow. Like, I'm literally, everything I do is slow. I can't rush. And this one, weigh-in morning, we're trying to get there early. Not doing too bad. And he's sort of all nimbly-bimbly walking along the street. And me all dramatic, going, just leave me if you want to go, just go, but I can't go any faster. And he's literally like carrying me along and carrying my bags and helping me up the stairs because I just am not doing well at life at all.
To be fair though, I did say I was going to go to that comp to carry or hold her bags because I wasn't doing that well in the prep. So, but we made weight, that was good. And then refeed day. So see, this girl here can eat more food probably than Brian Shaw in a sitting. It's insane. But that's really cool to have an eat off. And people go, oh yeah, it's unbelievable what she can put away. And it's actually quite funny. I think we were talking about it yesterday. We're out eating how, it's almost a reverse relationship because if we were out and we had these massive pizzas at one place and we were refeeding. And people with brains had 2 or 3 slices. We both ordered a whole one each. I ate all but 1 slice, and I'm like, oh, I'm dying. And she's like, oh, you did really well. And then they eat the rest of the pizza. So, it's funny.
I've got problems.
And then, I guess the other part, which we've made, but then watching, so say, you're so vested in the other person doing well, whilst also needing to be aware to warm up and be ready for your own event. And then being able to take the high of success, to say, like, by the end, Camilla, like, winning an event, and then you've got to then drop your arousal level to compose and warm up and then bring yours back up to compete. It's quite, and I'm sure there's people who do it. I know I've seen, you've had couples on here before, which is the coolest. Again, it's just another variable then that changes how you approach it and controlling your emotions and your levels throughout the show. But yeah, and then being happier watching someone else succeed versus yourself, which is, again, different. So yeah, there's a lot to it. It's really cool. Quite amazing, and my words won't do it justice, but yeah, incredible experiences. The highs and the lows. Like, you do go through, I guess, those really shitty times together, and then also enjoy, like, the magic as well.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask a real movie type question here. If the weight cut is so difficult, why not compete middleweight?
Oh, well, I have. So I guess the thing is, you go. I like your philosophy on it.
I think, from weightlifting and just my life in sports, my brother in martial arts, things like that, I think that competing within your weight category, and again, this is my opinion, don't ever put it on other people, but I think competing within your weight category is unprofessional. I think it's, if you want the best from yourself and you want to do the best, the people who win are the people who are strongest and heaviest on the day, as a general rule within that weight class. So for me personally, the weight cut is horrific. I dropped a huge amount of body weight and it really hurts my soul. But when there was no 73 kilo division, it was either bulk up to 84 at least, because I don't think it's right to compete within, or cut down to 64s. For me, that was a no-brainer. I was literally halfway between them. I've been really overweight when I was younger. I think between like 16 and 18, I was over 100 kilos, and it was not because of weightlifting. It was not muscle. I was just overweight. I had no idea about nutrition or the relationship between diet and exercise and all that sort of stuff. I just
couldn't put the fork down.
Could not put the fork down. It was a learning curve. It was quite the curve indeed. But anywho, I don't want to poke that bear again, and I'm in that. I know there are lots of women who are in the same boat, who have been overweight and lost weight, and then you don't know how to manage that and where do you sit so that you're not always dieting, and where are you comfortable, and if you try to manipulate that, are you going to go too far either way? So I've never really been that interested in going up a weight class for that exact reason, because I just tend to sit around this weight anyway, give or take a couple of kilos. And my other personal unpopular belief is that not making weight is just unacceptable. So if you've decided, it's the one thing we can all plan for, and it doesn't matter, because it can be manipulated in different ways, either through diet or exercise, your caloric intake for the day. You know months in advance what you're going to do, possibly years. You know what category you're going to be in, do the things that you need to do to get there. And I was nearly made a mockery of in the last competition that I entered, because I needed to cut weight for it, and it didn't go to plan at all. The last day, anyway, it doesn't matter. I was over. I went to weigh in and I was over by 500 grams, and I was already really dry and not doing well at all.
And our scales are different reasons.
Yeah.
This is the challenge when you travel interstate or overseas, is are your scales actually going to match the competition scales, which is a bit tricky again. Yeah,
whether they're calibrated or not. Again, it doesn't matter. It was on me, and the call was, do I go up a class? And not to sound like a dickhead at all, I was reasonably confident that I would win the weight class up. That wasn't really the issue for me. The issue for me was that I was potentially not making weight, and it made me feel physically sick, thinking that my philosophy on weight cuts has always been really staunch, and I'm first to be judgy, especially on myself, on all sorts of things. If I didn't make weight, then I would just be revolted with myself. But it was a really, really hard thing, and I ended up, it was worse for me, because Carl was trying to be really kind. And he said to me, you have no reason, I was really struggling. And Carl was like, you have no reason to cut. You can do it if you want to. It's possible, but you don't have to. And my brain was so dysfunctional at that point that I was like, I need someone to tell me what to do. Don't give me options, because I can't brain at the moment. Honestly, I had no idea. I was nearly, if I could have cried, if I weren't so dehydrated, I probably would have. But I couldn't work out what to do. And I ended up, he didn't want to give me an ultimatum either way, because he could see that I wasn't doing well. And I ended up basically begging my brother to tell me what to do. I said, I don't know, this is where I'm at. And he's done lots of weight cuts himself. And he just said, at the time, I think I was 200 grams over. I'd been spitting in a cup and sitting in the car with a heater on for a couple of hours by this point. And he said, if you're just 200 grams over, he said, just do it. Like, you won't be happy with yourself if you don't. I was like, okay, that's fine. That's all I needed to hear, was just get it done one way or the other, or pull the pin. But at that competition, I knew that was where I had the maximum silver dollar deadlift, and I really wanted to do it as a lightweight, not as a middleweight or a new weight class or anything like that. So that was a big motivator for me. It wasn't about the winning or anything like that. It was just about having the opportunity to do something really cool. But so that was a really long-winded way of saying that, yes, I think you train as heavy and as strong as you can possibly be to give yourself the best opportunity to succeed.
That's a really interesting philosophy, one that I haven't heard before. In fact, Rebecca Lorch, who I think you might be familiar with, was on my show before, and she said she cuts quite a bit as well. Now I have to ask her the same question to see if her philosophy is similar.
Yeah, I believe it is. Yeah, we've had conversations. I was on a live Instagram thing with those two, with Tommy and her the other day, and talked a little bit about weight cutting. But she does quite heavy weight cuts too, by the sound of it. So good times to have before.
Very interesting. So, I mean, we've talked about a lot of different topics this evening. I've learned a ton from both of you. I think I'd just like to wrap up by giving you an opportunity to tell folks anything you'd like to promote, how best to follow you. Just feel free to plug whatever you like, both of you.
Sure. So I run Cerberus Australia. So he is one of my athletes. I also lift some things. So obviously you can just go to Cerberus.com, and if you're in this region, it will go to us, and we have a whole range of products basically covering all the things these days. So ideally support that, and obviously we do our best to support the shows in the area. So again, we'll put prize money up and support and give equipment to shows to try and grow the sport. Find me. I used to post stuff on Instagram. I might get around to posting some more again in the future, but that's probably about it for me, I think.
Yeah, again, yep, big plug, Cerberus, my one and only sponsor.
It's a good one.
It is. It's a really good one. What are you willing to do for your sleep? Would be interested. Like, I'm not very good at posting and stuff as well, again, because I'm not about self-promotion, but I do think it's important to document the progress and the whole training log as we go, and I try to do that. I'm trying to get better at it as I go along in the sport. Would definitely consider sponsors, but at the moment, no, don't have any. Don't have a lot of support at all, actually, locally. So it's a bit. It's an interesting.
The food one for the big vest. Really. Anyone with the food sponsorship's winning. I think that's the way to go.
And again, yep, absolutely would take on anyone on an eating challenge. I am the human TARDIS. Game on.
Fantastic. Well, I'm more extroverted, so I'll promote both of you. Don't worry. I'll post about both of you.
Thank you very much for having us on the show. Yeah. That's been really cool, and great work with what you're doing, promoting all the levels of the sport too. It's really good to see.
Agreed.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, and I've had a blast with both of you. So hopefully, maybe after your next competition, we have another chat again. What do you think?
Sounds like a plan.
Fantastic. Well, have a nice evening.
Thank you
so very much. Take care.
You too. So if you like this video and haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing using that button right there. And also stay tuned for some other videos that you might love blooping up right there. This one is the one that YouTube thinks that you will like the best, and this one is the one that I think you will like the best. As always, share this with everyone, and until next time, ciao, homie.